Good afternoon, this is Oxinity Talks on Education. Teaching can be the most rewarding profession ever, or it can be yet another thing that we do for living. What makes a difference? Let's analyze what teachers need in order to be successful. We are going to take different angles today, and we are going to analyze the skills, the knowledge, the training, the methodology, and also the business opportunities for teachers. We are here today with Louis Morris in Barcelona.
Hello.
Beverly Wong.
Hi.
Gracia Guzman in Madrid, and Graham Bell in Malaga. So, Louis, is that familiar for you? I'm a teacher because I can't imagine working on something that is not meaningful. Teaching can never be meaningless.
Yeah, it's familiar. It's my words from yesterday.
Great, yeah, you said that, which is quite true, and you actually make it happen. This is true for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but from your perspective and experience, what makes a natural teacher?
I think it's something that we know quite instinctively. What makes a natural teacher? You can feel whether it's working for you or not. We always talk about a person who's able to be a doctor, and they talk about natural police, so it's true in other professions as well. But I think for a teacher, first and foremost, it's a social profession. You're never working on your own as a teacher, so you have to be very happy with working with other people and putting their needs first. So teaching, it's not about ego. I think that's very important, those two things in particular. Add to that, it can help if you've got a little charisma, if you're able to be patient with people, and put yourself in other people's shoes. I think that's what makes a good teacher, along with the obvious being organised and punctual. It doesn't work in this profession to be late.
Absolutely. Graham, as a teacher trainer, tell us, can anyone become a teacher? Can all these things be acquired or learned somehow?
Anyone can become a teacher. Anyone can study for the 4 weeks and put their time in to become a teacher. It's whether or not they become a good teacher. For this, it requires all the elements that Louis just mentioned there, empathy and motivation to continue learning. We can only teach, as in trainers, we can only teach so much in 4 weeks. But what makes a good teacher is when they take that base and take the next step forward.
Okay, so for example, adding to the list that Louis mentioned before, I would say someone that is reflective, someone who is looking to work as a team as well, and to be open-minded. And for us, the key thing here is that they understand they're becoming part of a community where we all work together with the same aim. So it's very important that they understand what is sharing, what it means to give and also to take. It works both ways, and also that they are always questioning how we're doing things. Because I think that that's the only way to continue going forward and to get in where we want to be. There's always a different way. There's always a new idea. So I think that we have to be reflective. That's for me is key, and also reflective on your own practice. That you're looking to listen to other people's comments and take that criticism as well as a constructive criticism, I think, because some people, some teachers fail into doing the same thing over and over again, and it gets quite tiring and quite boring for the teacher, but also for students.
So, Beverly, we talk a lot about teachers, but there are also instructors. So, what is, in your opinion, the difference between a teacher and an instructor?
For me, instructing is, well, as it comes from the word verb to instruct, it's using maybe set rules to achieve objectives, and maybe using a sequence to teach something. But I think that's different with teaching. I think with teaching, you are looking for the best way to teach that student, to teach the person in front of you. I think it relates back to what Louis said about ego, and I think with teaching you need to put your ego aside and deal with the people in front of you and find the best way to teach those students. And for me, I think that teaching is about empowering the student, making it pleasurable, making learning fun, and also, I guess to some extent, inspiring, being an inspiration to students.
Is that why you chose to be a teacher?
Yeah, it's something, and that's when I find it rewarding, and I find, I guess the magic in teaching is when you empower a student and they start to play with language and they're happy to make mistakes, but they're also learning at the same time and exploring English language.
Okay, great. So motivation has a big deal to do in this equation. So Graham, where can teachers find motivation? What do they need? How do they develop that skill?
Well, when I'm training like future TEFL teachers, it's looking for that motivation they had in the past, trying to my title is TEFL instructor, but it's where me and Beverly disagreed on the definition of instructor the other day, and I realized I was wrong, because an instructor does sit with a set of rules, but as a trainer, my job is to find that motivation in the actual teacher. What past experiences, what moments of their life have they enjoyed sharing information, and try and draw that from them, use transferable skills from a past career to motivate them, to show them that they have been a successful teacher in the past. It's not just being a teacher, you can teach anything. Once you have the knowledge of being an English teacher, it's developing that skill. And it's the same for them to then take that and apply that to their students. It's quite a good process for them to go through.
Louis, methodology, how relevant is it for an English teacher? How can we help teachers with the right methodology to make the most of their classes?
Sure, I think methodology is fundamental. Sometimes when I teach the second week of the TEFL course, which is methodology, we look at historical methodologies, and sometimes it can feel a little bit abstract. Mm-hmm. But the reality of methodology is just how we do things in the classroom. And earlier you mentioned that I said, I have to believe in the thing that I do. I have to believe that it's meaningful. For me, if the methodology doesn't work, I can't do that.
Okay.
So the approach that we use in the classroom has to be correct. And when we talk about methodology, that's what we talk about. And Gracia mentioned being reflexive as a teacher, and that's also the ability to recognize when something doesn't work and to change things. Because anything that stays stable for too long, in the end it doesn't work. Everything always needs to be updated and to change. So we have to ask ourselves, is the way we're doing things correct? And update our methodology too.
But can one person do all these things on
One
their
person
own?
can think about it, but it's very useful to have a sounding board with other teachers and other professionals to talk about what works for you, what doesn't work, and figure out a way to go forward together. I think it's better.
Okay, so what type of teaching can you not imagine doing?
For me, when I watch the Callan method, for those who don't know, it's reading from a script.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I need to be able to ask students if they have any questions. I need to be able to answer those questions. So for me, anything too rigid, it wouldn't work. I like the conversational method. But for other people, I believe that they could be good teachers teaching in another method. The grammar translation method, for example, has its positives, especially if you want to learn a language which isn't currently spoken, like Latin or ancient Greek, and I can't imagine teaching that because it's not my interest.
Yeah.
But for me, it would have to be conversational, definitely.
And an instruction such as, okay guys, open the book on page 32, let's do that. Is that engaging in your opinion?
Well, it depends how you would adapt doing that. If the page 32 contains a really fun activity, why not?
Yeah.
But otherwise I'd adapt it to try and do it without the book.
But the syllabus is important for you in any case.
You need the outline, definitely.
What do you need for a successful class?
Well, the syllabus, just for a very simple, from a basic point of view, you don't want to teach what was taught last week. And you want what was taught last week to naturally be followed up by what you teach this week, and for next week to make sense in a line, because otherwise it's teaching in abstract. So in that sense, the syllabus is important. Besides that, it's also making sure that the students are learning something which is relevant to their skill level, which is relevant to their interests, because maybe they come from a different background, they want to learn English for business purposes, then you don't want to teach them about slang and colloquialisms. So syllabus is important for all of that, I think.
Okay, and how important is it, in your opinion, to belong to a community? I mean, not to be alone in all this process, but to be supported by other people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really important. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to be able to have that conversation with people about what works for the student, but it's also important for other practical reasons, like if I am sick one day, if I'm working on my own, that student has no teacher.
Mhm.
The way that it can work as we're part of a community is I can probably find someone who can cover for me, and then I could cover for them another time for a later date. Or
Maybe
something
Beverly
similar.
can cover for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm done today after this, so I won't need any cover today.
Great. Graham, when teaching English for specific purposes, what can we do? Because, okay, we need probably, do we need to have those specific knowledge, or we can do something else? Tell us some tips.
Yeah, I had a nice experience this week with a company, an environmental company I'm working with. And I thought I knew a fair bit about the environment, but I quickly learned I didn't. And working with this company, they assessed the carbon footprint for Malaga as a province. So they gave me their abstract, and I've now taken their abstract of their company's objectives. They've translated it into English themselves, and now I'm working with them. So I'm learning about their company, and I'm using their abstract to teach them the kind of English that they need specifically for their job. So sometimes learning the knowledge that your students have can make more on-the-job experience and can make the learning process for them far more purposeful.
Okay, talking about knowledge, Beverly, how important, what knowledge do teachers have to have?
Well, I mean, obviously, knowledge is the basis of of teaching. If we don't know something, we can't teach it and share it with others. But I don't think it's everything. To be a good teacher, you need to have more than knowledge. Preparation is another thing. It's key to teaching. But on top of that, I think it's how you teach what you know, or how you teach the content in front of you. And going back to what Graham said, I think it's also how you deal with what you don't know, and you have to be prepared that you might not know. Students come in and there's different situations that you don't know about, and you need to be open to learning, new things and students' backgrounds in order to teach them in the best way.
So, if we are not so familiar with the subject, preparation is your tip to overcome that.
Yeah, definitely. With some activities, sometimes I'm reading an article and I'm not that familiar with the situation in the article, if it's historical or political, and I make an effort to go and do a little bit of research before, so I can provide engaging questions and to get students to talk and expand on the material that I have in front of me.
Fantastic. And then Louis, we mentioned here that for a teacher it's very important to have some experience as well. But what if they don't have that experience? What can they do?
Well, I think teaching experience is something we all have. From when you're at school and you'd help a classmate with a problem, to in lots of other jobs, there's always some transferable skills that you can take from teaching. When I worked in a bar, I had to teach someone how to change the barrel. It's a very different thing, but I still had to teach them how to do it. So you can learn from that experience and you can use that in class, but the teaching experience has to come with time. It has to come in the classroom. And that's why I think a very important part of our TEFL course is that you have in-class experience, an hour a day at least. But there are things you can do to make up for it. Beverly mentioned more preparation. When you're a new teacher, you prepare more. Over time, as you get better, you need to prepare less. You've taught this before. Also, you learn to anticipate the problems that the students will have. So anticipating the problems means you have to prepare less, and that, for me, that anticipation is the best thing that comes with experience. You can't get that synthetically, so you have to teach.
Yeah, of course. So more preparation, just in case we have to make fast decisions in the classroom. That's what your tip for new teachers.
Yes, and students will have questions, so that's the type of thing that you have to respond to quickly.
Okay, excellent. So, Gracia, over to you. Again, from your experience as a recruiter, when interviewing teachers, what needs do they have? What do they share with you?
Basically, the first thing they need is a student. Otherwise, they cannot teach anybody. But then there are many more things that comes with that. So they need the students, they need to prepare material, and sometimes spend even more time preparing than actually teaching the students. They need as well to manage those students effectively too. Because if you are teaching, you cannot be ringing a new student. And also, when you have your schedule full, you cannot continue ringing people and looking for new students for when you miss those students. They also have to deal with the payments, with collection of the money as well. They have to deal with cancellations from part of the student. They have to, even if they are ill one day as well, they have to arrange that. They cannot have a day off when they're ill because they have to ring those students that they have to teach as well. So those are many many things that they need, and they normally comment in interviews when I'm speaking to them. And also the combination of all those tasks that they have to do in order to be successful, owning their own students and managing them and everything, is what makes them burnt out sometimes, because they find that they cannot get to everywhere. If they have to prepare for the class with enough time, and you have to also travel to the class, but also you have to ring the student, but also you have to make sure they pay you on time, but also, there are too many things. And on top of that, then if the student cancels last minute, all that work that they did, was for nothing as well. So then frustration comes as well. And that's why what I'm finding lately, when I'm interviewing people and also when I'm presenting, the service that we offer to teachers in Oxenity, and as a community, they really find it refreshing, because they say that they have never heard about something like this before. And if you add to that, well, you have someone who looks after your clients when you can't, someone who can answer the phone when you are teaching, that you have your lessons there ready to go. Even if one day you're running from one to the other, you can quickly check in on the metro. You don't have to be thinking, oh gosh, what I'm going to do today. And the payments and everything, but also that they have a group of teachers there that share the same experiences, and I think that's a key value as well. They can support each other, and like, for example, like Louis was saying before, if one day he has to go somewhere, or if he's ill, he can ask another colleague, and then another little thing that I forgot to mention there before as well is that when they want to work with companies, and they want to offer a professional service to a big company, for example, it's quite difficult for them, because they have to go through so many hoops, and probably just one person on their own have the resources or have the time to do all of that. So it's different that you go to a company, you say, I am the teacher that is going to teach you, and I offer all of this, but also I have my team to support me, and everything runs smoothly. Then the teacher goes, but then the admin team can sort the payment, can sort the rest. So, and also you have the added value that you can say to the company, don't worry, you will miss a lesson, because if I'm ill, another teacher will come. Do you need Spanish lessons? I have a colleague who can teach Spanish. Do you need French lessons? So then the possibility to grow and to expand the business is bigger.
Now that we are talking about support and supporting structures, from your perspective, Graham, teaching, for instance, web classes, what support do you need?
The support from other teachers is one of the first things that I require. Like any online teacher, teachers like updating materials and keeping everything to a really high standard is great for all of us. That's something that primarily I really need. But secondly, it's the support team, the IT, the amount of problems I have to get fixed on a daily basis that I can quickly pick up a phone or Skype or use the Microsoft Teams. The guys who schedule. My life is made a lot easier by the people behind the scenes who do all the work and are there to answer pretty much, well, not 24 hours a day, but from 9 until 9 every day. They're there for me, and it makes my job a lot easier.
Louis, what other support do you need? What people would you like to be with you and understand your processes as a teacher?
Well, I think we work with everybody in the office, so all the administrative staff along with the IT staff, and I think that the thing that we would look the most as teachers to be understood about what we do is that teaching, it's not like a lot of other jobs, it's very energetic. And when you're in a classroom, you want to be on form, because when you're not a good teacher, maybe you don't retain the students, or maybe you just feel like you didn't do your best effort. And I do think that sometimes students who have me in the morning may think I'm a better teacher than students who have me in the classroom late in the evening. So understanding that teaching takes a lot of energy, scheduling is very important. So for us, I think it's very important that people who we work with understand that when they schedule our hours, it takes into account the difficulty of the job.
Absolutely.
It's a big part of it.
Sometimes, yeah, because students always prefer the same schedules, but it's when understanding that, it's when we start negotiating.
Yeah.
So, okay, a little bit earlier, a little bit later.
Little things like students often want their classes at lunchtime, for example.
Yeah.
But teachers have to eat too. So there has to be a gap somewhere in there for us to have our lunch.
Very true. Yeah, it's true. So I guess, Gracia, the following question is for you. How can a teacher develop their business if they don't have students to start with?
Well, so first of all, they need to know where the students are. You know, the students normally, it's a shame, I know, but they don't come to your door and say, hey, I need English lessons, you know, so you need to know where the students are. So, for example, they need to understand that and then be in those places that the students are. I don't mean everywhere physically, but we have internet these days and a lot of the marketing that can be done online, so that's a start. And also, I think that's another point that I forgot to mention before as well, in my other, when I was speaking about what the teachers need, is that if you have someone who can give you a hand and give you the first two customers or the first two students, then of course you can get it started. And that's something as well that we offer, because when luckily many teachers are growing very rapidly and they cannot take students anymore, so they are passing on and giving the opportunity to other people to start new, and also the customers that the system has on its own.
We have a question from Scott. How can you make classes relevant and flow when you have mixed level students? For instance, P3 and P5. So, yeah, that's a very recurrent issue in classes. What do we do?
Well, I think it's something that's very difficult. It happens especially with P3 because when you start P3, it's very different to when you're ready to graduate to P4. So it's an intermediate level.
Let's just explain that P3 for us is our pre-intermediate level, and P4 our intermediate, upper intermediate.
Exactly. So the difference is, and because of also what companies demand, companies want 1 hour and they want these students to learn and they don't take into account the level. So for us, it's very important to find a balance. I think one of the best things we can do is to use the higher level students in the classroom as assistant teachers, get them to teach the things to the other students, because you'll know yourself that when you teach something, you really learn it. So I teach the grammar part of the TEFL course. My grammar has improved a lot teaching grammar, much better than just listening, because teaching is active, and to teach something you really have to understand it. So if you get the higher level students to teach the lower level students, it cements their knowledge, and I think it's a really handy technique.
We have a very interesting question here. Do you think we always improve as teachers, or do you think it's possible to get worse? I guess motivation is here something key, but what do you think?
I think if we're good teachers, then we will. I think, because I think to be a good teacher, you need to be a life learner. You need to be someone that's always prepared to learn and develop. And so, I think if you're a good teacher, then you are going to improve. But if you're maybe not prepared to learn and open to that, then I don't know. Possibly, I don't know. Potentially, you could maybe just stay the same, or I don't know.
Well, all right. And another question from Dan as well. Do you ever find yourself or yourselves using different methodologies with different levels, or a mixture of methodologies with one class?
Yes, I think
Yes.
you'd have to use different approaches, not just with different levels, but it can depend on the student. So you'll have students who tell you, I don't want to do this, I don't want to learn grammar, I don't want to have a conversation. And so you have to adapt yourself to the situation, certainly. So it helps to know some different methodologies, maybe even ones that aren't your favourite ways of teaching, so that you have them up your sleeve if you need them.
Okay. If what would be the one piece of advice you would give to a new teacher? Only one. If you could give only one, what would it be? Someone that just starts.
For me, it would just be to be patient. It will take time to learn how to teach. It will take time for the students to learn.
Yeah.
And if you're not patient, if you get frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
it goes downhill very quickly.
I think for me, because obviously when you start teaching, you're nervous and you want to make the best impression. But it would be going back to one of the points that I made before and Louis made, but that's to remember that the purpose is about teaching the people in front of you, and it's not about you and your ego. It's about making sure that they're learning and enjoying learning. So that would be one of my tips.
Graham and Gracia. Yeah, Graham, what would your tip be? Your advice?
For me, it's that when you're a beginner teacher, we do this 4-week course and it tells us how to be a perfect teacher. And it's not instant. If you look back at some of the videos of my first teachings, and if I was to look back, I'd be like this. Oh my goodness. We learn as we go. I mean, you start off, you want to do the inductive approach. You want to do all these, you want to do present, practice, produce. But you don't do that at start. You try your best. It's trial and error. And I think the key is not to be too tough on yourself. Just keep reading, and try and develop your instincts. Don't be a robot. That would be my bit of advice.
I would agree with that, Graham. I would say it's preparation and flexibility as well. Because if you have to be very well prepared, but of course also you have to adapt to the situation. Because I have seen, especially that happens when you start, if you have prepared a class and you have prepared so well, and then when the students don't respond well, or maybe you turn to the class, I don't know, something is different, then you're like, gosh, but I prepared so much, So the preparation and flexibility will be for me the key tips to share.
Great. And then we have a question from Catherine. You've been teaching for a while. When do you think it's best to go for a refresher course for development? Well, that's a great question actually, because when is the right moment to do a refresher? Or do we have to go for a continuous training maybe? What's the recipe?
Well, teaching, I think the best type of learning, it's not summative, it's formative, so you're always working on it.
Yeah.
We're always refreshing at teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I know when you work in institutions, they'll have training days, but training days are just summarizing what we're learning all the time. So I think it's a process that we continuously work on, rather than doing a course after 6 months, say.
Exactly. I would say that teachers benefit a lot from meeting and talking to each other. So the meetings, the Friday meetings that we organize here are a great opportunity for teachers to upskill and learn from the rest, especially when Gracia, yes.
Okay, so I would say as well that a good way to develop the teaching proficiency and everything that you are doing is to observe other colleagues as well. I think that's the best way to learn. When you observe other colleagues, when, as you were saying before as well, Ramila, when you speak to other colleagues as well about how do you do this, and you try different things, that's for me the best training that you can get. I think that you have yourself, you have, because you are reflective, you reflect on what you do. If you think that you're doing the same thing all over, it's good to go and ask your colleague, hey, so what do you do with this? Or just say, well, can I go to one of your lessons and can I just see how you do it, or can we co-teach? I think that's the best training that you can get to develop as a teacher.
Great. Well, we don't have much more time. That was a great talk. Many thanks. I would just finish by saying that if you want to cover all our needs, remember that we're not alone in this, that we have a friend, a colleague, a community that can help. We can learn from them and obviously become better teachers. So, well, if you want to join us, just join us at oxinity.com. Bye, see you next Friday. Bye.